Hello, YouTube. I just had a realization that Travis Reeder drove the electric Camaro in Formula D.
I mean, when we started debuting the top 32, the departure from 32 to 1 was very far, but now it's gotten closer. But now, with no track time of head outside of practice earlier today, Chelsea Denofa really has to kind of temper his aggression here. But Travis Reeder looking great out front. Travis Reeder throwing it down. Again, the only car you're hearing is that of Chelsea Denofa and that exhaust note, but of course the screeching of the tires as the Napoleon Motorsports Camaro.
And I'm so excited to ask him a bunch of silly questions about it because I made a video about this before I even knew that Camaro was in Formula D. I was like, man, Cy and I drove Model 3 Performance around, and I was like in a ludicrous mode, Model S, and I keep driving Teslas that are really fast. And have you driven fast Teslas?
Yeah.
Yeah, you're just like, oh my God, these things are so fast. What would they be like as a stripped out race car and stuff?
Yep.
And I know that there was gonna be a bunch of technical limitations. A small level team, like I shouldn't call y'all's team small, but a team that was not an all-electric team that had tons of experience, with all of this stuff, it would be incredibly difficult to start off and like hit a home run out of the park on your first time without like some type of factory support like Tesla or somebody that was doing that stuff. So what I want to ask him is, how'd the whole electric thing go? Like, how are they charging it? How was it to drive? How was battery management? Was the motor sufficient? Was the car too heavy? How is like just anything you want to talk about?
Yeah,
tell us about it, because this is awesome. And they're taking like the other sides of motorsports by storm, but it's because they have unlimited budgets probably. I mean, if you have all of Volkswagen behind you and they just got sued for like $10 billion by every government in the world, they're going to be building a ton of like, electric car stuff, and it's no holds barred expensive. Whereas you were on a much more budget limited team that probably didn't have everything at their disposal. So tell us about it.
Yeah. So that program, I got hired to drive the car when they were kind of drafting drivers to figure out this thing, and it was something that the Napoleons wanted to do. It was new and different, and they called me, and I was all for it because I like the cool, like weird things as well, and it was also like I had just decided to kind of step out of Pro 2 because I had done my second season, like done pretty well, so it was an easy decision for me to go for it because it was a way to jump up to Pro 1 with something that was new and exciting, and people would, it would draw attention. It'd be good for me. It'd be good for the team. And so they started with a Camaro. They had Trans Am background, so they'd run Trans Am series. So they got this Camaro and decided to, put it together as an EV car, and basically start from scratch and kind of like learn as you go. And I spent a lot of time down there, a couple months, kind of finalizing the car with them and learning with them and trying to figure out how to make the damn thing work, because it was new for everyone. None of those guys had EV experience.
And they chose the Camaro because they knew the platform really well.
Yeah, they knew the platform. Even though their Trans Am cars aren't really Camaros anymore, it just kind of stuck with what they were kind of known for.
Okay. So you showed up, you had a month with them, keep going.
Yeah. So the car was, it was Tesla drivetrain, so transaxle. So the
Model 3 or Model S?
It was I think it was a dropout of a 100, like P100.
Okay.
So
the rear motor or the front motor?
Yeah, the rear motor. Okay. So I started with that, got it fit in the subframe, did some cool stuff with that for kind of weight and positioning. So it was transaxle, essentially an automatic car, no gearbox, nothing like that. And then the batteries went in the front to offset the weight, so in the engine bays where the batteries were. And then they kind of sourced their engine management and put it together as we went, and it ended up at like 420, 430 volts, which we kind of did some math on what we thought the power level would be. And then we quickly realized that there's a lot of variables there. Electric motors are definitely a lot different than what everyone's used to. But no, it was an awesome car. it drove well, and it wasn't super heavy, surprisingly.
How much did it weigh?
It weighed, so for our weight, we were on a 315 Nitto, so I think we had to be 3,200. So it would ended up like fully dressed with me in at 3,250 to be on the safe side once tires are dead and, you know, if a body panel falls off or whatever. So it was right in the weight class we were supposed to be. It wasn't like astronomically, you know, heavy or big or whatever, but it was good. It was actually like decently nimble. The hardest thing to figure out was how to run the throttle, because you would just step on the gas from a dead stop and it would go from 0 to 120 miles an hour wheel speed like right away.
Just like instantly?
Yeah, just instantly.
It
just
sounds
blow
like
the
the
tires
coolest
off.
thing on earth until you're like, oh, whoops.
Yeah, yeah, and the craziest thing to me was hearing the tires work. So hearing the tires change pitch and create grip or, you know, lose grip, you can hear it like very vividly. And that was something I'd never experienced before, so that was pretty cool. You hear rocks like hitting the fenders and throwing crap in the wheel wells and all
Was
that
it
kind of
helpful
stuff.
hearing the tires do that stuff, or it was just entertaining?
It was more entertaining for me. I kind of don't drive necessarily by noise, which kind of helped me. It was cool battling people in it because I could always hear their throttle inputs like immediately. So as soon as they got on the gas, I could get on the gas. And then the downside for them was they didn't know what the hell I was doing because they couldn't hear it. They would just see like kind of a delayed smoke trail once I picked up the throttle, and they'd have to kind of like judge and take off, you know?
It's so weird to think about that stuff.
Yeah.
So run me through a lap. You're at the line, there's no transmission or anything.
Yeah.
You just roll into the gas or mat the gas, or like, what do you do to leave the line?
Yeah,
And then
I mean,
what do you do when you get to the first corner? How do you drive the thing? I don't know. There's no clutch kicking, obviously.
yeah, so we only drove it at 2 rounds. It was, okay, technically 3. We made a couple practice laps to Orlando, but we put it back in the trailer because we broke it. So Atlanta was the first event we actually competed in it and qualified. And basically just like in the burnout box, you're tiptoeing, you know, barely touching the throttle to try to, you know, not blow the tires off, because if you just give it 50%, it's just going to light them off, and like it's going to be filled with smoke. You can't see anything.
Sounds so cool.
Yeah, it's cool. And then basically just like pull up to the line, sit there, you know, you'd hit your button for D, like D for drive on the little keypad we had. And then, you know, just throttle and brake pedal, and like my feet would just hover, like never leave. I mean, you just run out of the chicane, barely touching the throttle, and just like once you got rolling probably 25, 30 miles an hour, I could put it to the floor and it would hook up. And it was probably the fastest drift car I've ever driven in a straight line, like on the run up. It was pretty wild because it was kind of dead hooked and the pull never stopped because there was no gear shifting. So it was just constantly pulling the whole time until I ripped the handbrake and, you know, initiated. But then from there, that's where we kind of had the issues, was working the battery super hard because you're constantly trying to be wide open. And like we were talking about earlier, is in a car like this, if you grip it up too much, it bogs the motor. It doesn't want to spin the tires, and you can feel that the car's too tight. With that car, if you start gripping the car up, making it faster and faster, the electric motor doesn't care about load. It just tries to draw more amperage out of the battery packs, and eventually can kill the pack really quickly. So when we tried to make the car fast, we would get, you know, by the end of the first lap, I could feel that it was a little down on power, and then starting the second lap where the batteries didn't have time to level out, it was really obvious because I'd be wide open through the whole course, not lifting, and like physically driving the car really hard to keep it in drift because it was just everything it had. It felt like you'd start the first lap and you felt like you'd have 1,000 horsepower, and then by the end of the second lap, you felt like you had 150 horsepower, and I'm driving the car like a Corolla, you know, to try to keep it.
And were the battery packs liquid cooled or anything like that? Was heat getting out of control, or was it just a leveling problem with electricity? Like, I don't even understand.
Yeah, so we had like a battery management system. So we had a dash display that would read temperatures from every individual cell. And we could see what cells in the pack was hot or if the whole pack was hot. And we would see like some pretty crazy temperatures. And it's just one of those things, like the more you load it and the more you stress the pack out, the more the temperature rises, and there's not really any way to cool it.
Did you say there was liquid cooling or no?
No.
Okay.
No.
So the Teslas and stuff use like glycol. Is it glycol? I don't even remember. They run something through like a little tiny wavy cooling channels throughout the battery pack. So the battery pack sits there with cylindrical cells.
Yep.
It has like a goo that holds them together so that they don't run away and like blow up and go into thermal runaway. And then it has little wavy, because there's cylinders, so it's like, and they run a liquid coolant through it. Y'all didn't do anything like that?
No, it was just the packs how they were, and that was it. And they were kind of enclosed in an aluminum box.
So if the car was not doing that, not turning into a Corolla, would it have been competitive?
It would have been more competitive than it was. I don't necessarily think it would have been like championship worthy. If the thing had, a 700 volt pack in it that would last infinitely, and you could always have the power, I'm sure I could learn how to drive it and be a lot more competitive in it, for sure.
Would you rather have that 700 volt electric car, like drivetrain in this thing, or a gas drivetrain in this thing? Like, is that a dream to like drive another completely sorted out electric car? You're like, it was whatever. It was neat, but like,
I mean, it's super cool, and I really enjoyed doing it, for sure. Like, the opportunity was killer because it helped my career, definitely. But I think there's a lot of development needed to make it worthwhile, and development comes with a lot of money as well. So as of right now, I would prefer to stick with this, unless the money and development happened to where you could progress that car.
what if Tesla was like, let's do this?
I mean, yeah, that'd be cool. They have a lot of money. So, I mean, I'd be down.
So you think it would work, or you don't think it'd work?
I think it could definitely work.
Just a lot of money.
It's money and research.
So when they came out with, like, say, the Solstice with Reese Millen or any of the new chassis, typically it takes, at least a couple years to develop them. Y'all didn't give the chassis much time to be developed. You gave it just 3 events. You never had a revision of the battery pack, did you?
Nope.
So it was just an out-of-the-box Tesla drive or like motor set with some other random cobbled together, I sound derogatory, I don't mean that, but it wasn't like a Tesla battery pack, it wasn't like a sled battery pack that goes underneath the car. You were taking an internal combustion chassis that was laid out with a transmission tunnel still, piling the batteries probably in the transmission tunnel and up in the engine bay. I don't even know where.
Yeah, just in the engine bay.
Okay, just the engine bay. That probably wasn't like a super perfect layout for an electric car.
Yeah.
Do you agree?
Yeah, for sure. I mean, I always wanted that car to have a transmission and a rear end. I wanted it to be traditional.
So you could clutch kick, or just so you
Not
could shift?
necessarily the clutch kick, just the controlling wheel speed. And in my mind, my theory was the fact that the battery pack had to pull the tires from 0 to 120. That's an extreme load. If we had a gearbox and the battery pack only had to pull, 0 to 40, 40 to 60, 60 to 80, 80 to 120 or whatever, that window of load is much smaller. And I feel like it would be easier on the battery packs in that case. And then we'd also have the ability to change final drive, which final drive is like a huge thing in drifting. Like if they banned quick changes, I don't know what the hell I'd do. I'd be buying every set of G-force gears to re-gear the box because I have to have the wheel speed right.
Going back real quickly to the electric battery pack and stuff, you wouldn't ever try and run a combustion engine, which creates so much heat, without some type of cooling system.
Yeah.
Why did you guys try and run a battery pack, which obviously has lots of thermal problems as well, in a race car application where the street cars have, like a cooling system? What was the thought process on that? Did y'all just not think you would need it? Or was the battery type not conducive to having a cooling system, like surrounding it? Or is it just too much effort? Because did y'all think about that? Because like normally even with brakes, with anything, even the driver, you have a cooling system for the driver sometimes.
Yep.
Like you just didn't have a cooling system for the entire drivetrain.
Well, I mean, the rear end and the motor has coolant running through it.
Oh, there we go.
So like it had a small radiator and a
something
water
does.
pump. So like there was cooling in that.
Yeah.
But then again, like the entire team was learning as we went. So it was one of those things, we knew we couldn't get to everything and perfect everything. So we worked with what we had, and I wasn't a part of the battery sourcing process. The other part of the team did that. So I'm sure that they sourced a pack that the manufacturer was like, hey, these will work fine for your application, but maybe that company didn't really understand what those batteries were in for. But then again, neither did we, because it's not like the guys in Napoleon were like, oh, we definitely need these packs and this many of them to make this work because we know how they work. That's not at all how it could have happened. So it was a trial and error thing.
Yeah.
You
No,
know?
I'm just curious. I poke questions at everything, and I just keep asking, because when I made that video, I was thinking about that. I wouldn't even think about the cooling being a problem, and then you tell me that the thing, pulls just like in a combustion engine. If you weren't running any cooling by, the second lap of this thing, you would be melting it. It would not be happy.
Yeah.
I mean, I'm kind of surprised the batteries didn't go into thermal runaway and blow up or something. It's
Yeah, we never had any issues like that.
I'm just saying, the amount of abuse we put stuff through. We do the tires run into thermal runaway and blow up basically. They're just melting at the end of a lap. You don't even kill them correctly through friction like you would on a low horsepower car. You're just melting the things in a Formula D car.
Yep.
It's crazy.
Yeah, for sure. Yeah, it was one of those things where, it was, I don't think everyone knew what they were getting themselves into. We just wanted to do it.
No, that's really
so
cool,
we did
though.
whatever.
No one else had the guts to do that yet.
Yeah,
I
the
think it's
team did
rad.
whatever they could to make it happen and make it as best they could, and that was worth its weight in gold. The fact that we qualified that car at 2 rounds and completed completed 2 full battles without major mechanical failures was a huge win for the team and everything.
Did you win a battle?
No.
No?
No, I went up against, I had Chelsea in Atlanta, and he beat us in the 32, and then I had Osbo in the 32 at Jersey.
Okay.
So he beat us there, but we put up a better fight with Osbo at Jersey, and I think that's because the track was a lot smaller and less demanding of the car.
All right, is all that video online so I can go watch that? Your battles?
Yeah.
I only remember seeing a couple videos of that car. There wasn't a lot of media out on it. I thought that would be a huge media, viral sensation, but they didn't push it very much.
We did a thing with Donut. We did
I
a
did see that.
bumper
Yeah, that was
deal.
really cool.
We did a couple other things with driving line and some other little stuff here and there, but it was just because the car only competed 2 events.
Yeah.
And then we made kind of the executive decision to campaign my S13 for the rest of the season.
Yeah.
Because I was also chasing Rookie of the Year at the time.
Makes sense.
So it was kind of a...
Realistically, though, being
things.
the first guy to run an electric car and drifting like that is kind of amazing. And it kind of puts you down in the record books for that. Because eventually the electric cars are going to people yell at me about this, but they probably will be unbeatable. They have so much left on the table. Maybe they won't be. Who knows?
Yeah.
But
I would hope that there would be classes in the future, have an internal combustion class and an electric class.
Realistically, I don't think that they'll be as exciting to listen to because there's so much raw excitement. If you were at NASCAR and there was no engine noises, it wouldn't be the same thing.
Oh, yeah.
If you were at a top fuel race and there was no whatever, it wouldn't be the same thing. Drifting is the same way. I think you need noise. However, if there was an underdog, some crazy electric car out there in the field and all the other cars were loud, I think you could do it. And it'd be super fun to watch the electric car. But if it was a field of all electric cars, you'd be like, meh. And, it wouldn't be that exciting because of the noise. But I do think there's something in it.
Yeah, there's that dynamic in drifting that you need, especially at a pro level, for sure. But
absolutely.
I don't know, it was cool. I definitely don't regret doing it by any means. It was super awesome and a lot of fun, and I learned a lot from it. So, I mean, it was sick. I'd probably do it again.
Very cool. Well, thank you very much for telling me all about that. I thought it was a really cool topic, and I'm just annoying him now, asking about all these silly things.
No, you're good.
About electric cars, because I have an electric car boner. I really want a Tesla, and I'm too cheap to buy one.
I know, I've wanted one for a while. They're really cool.
Yeah. I keep getting them. Tesla actually gave one to me for a few days because I went to go, it was a stupid story, but they're like, here, take a car for a few days. And I'm like, they didn't even take my license or anything. And I'm like, you don't even care who I am? They're like, and I didn't even ask for it. They just were like, hey, do you want one? I was like walking by literally. And they're like, we know where the car is at all times. We can just come get it. I was like, oh, okay. They're like, just go beat on it. And they gave me a dual motor one. And I'd had a performance one before. And God, they're so cool. They're so fast.
It's so hilarious. Like you can't not make a payment on a Tesla because
they know exactly where it is.
The repo company can just lock you out, show up, and then you can't get in, and then they unlock it and pull it onto the tow truck. They're trying to, I read a thing where they're trying to make it to where
they can drive them back.
They will drive them back, and it will just come back to the dealership. You'll come out, your car's gone, and it repos itself. Super hilarious.
That's actually a lot better than some like junkyard, whatever, bounty hunter, whatever that guy is, show up at your house, like with a TV crew repoing your car.
Yep.
Kind of feel like Tesla people wouldn't get their cars repoed. Maybe they would.
You'd think. I don't know. Once they become more affordable and more common, once they become like more affordable and more common, I feel like people will miss some payments, and it might come to that. But
oh, one last thing. When do you think the next successful electric car will be in Formula D? Or is there a reason that they can't be, such as the safety crews can't deal with them? I heard something about that at Long Beach. The safety crew couldn't deal with it.
Yeah.
Is there anything that is stopping an electric car from coming right now?
I think it's just like a team with
enough money.
A team with enough money and experience to do it. Like the right way, I guess. Not that Napoleon did it the wrong way.
No, but if this car cost 200 grand to campaign without even campaigning, just the car, an electric car just off the top of your head probably would be 2 to 3 to 5 times the amount of money, and it would be expensive.
Easily, yeah.
So you'd be spending $1 million on the development of the car because no one else has done it, and you have to go pay the guys that know how to do it, so you're not fiddling around.
Yeah, you're paying a $100,000 salary to an engineer, sometimes multiple, to field a car like that. I don't know. I'd be surprised if a competitive EV came into drifting in the next, like, let's say like 5 or 6 years. I'd be surprised.
Yeah, I always get excited for stuff and I'm like, it's gonna be within 3 years. That's what I thought. And then you stop and you're like, man, they couldn't make like HD TVs work within 10 years and get them into people's houses for various reasons. You're like, they can't get rid of a freaking like connector on an iPhone or like move over to USB-C cables that fast. You're like, everything takes forever. Especially with something as complicated as like a whole drift car. And there's so much when you're dealing, I'm rambling, but like dealing with just fuel cells. You can't build that fuel cell setup by yourself as easily as going and getting it off the shelf. And it takes you 1 day to install it or something like that. But for you to engineer all that, buy all the bolts and all the pieces and build the thing, like, you know, that would take you weeks to go make yourself a really nice, even though you're a fabricator, piece like that probably.
Oh yeah.
So without having those off-the-shelf parts like an SLR kit or, you know, whatever, that's like the equivalent of an electric vehicle thing, you're re-engineering like everything.
Yep. Yeah, that's the hard part. I got to the point where there's things where I'm like, I could totally build this, but it's $40 online, it's here in 2 days. So I'm just gonna do that and move on to another project because like the time, I've started to value the time more and more over the years.
Should have built your FD car with those $50 Amazon bolt-on angle kit.
Oh, those are the worst. My buddy had a set. You had to run like 1.5 inches of tow out for it to feel okay.
Yeah.
It was rough.
Huge shout out to all the sponsors that help make the Drift Week content happen. All these guys, you should go to their websites. You should buy their products and support these companies for supporting the content you love. All these companies are great. So let's start with BC Racing Coilovers, ECU Master USA, Y-Plate Imports, Torco Racing Fuels and Oils, and also Drift Week HQ. Each of these companies plays an integral role with providing this content for this whole trip. I super appreciate it. Thank you so much. If you appreciate these videos, support the people that create it for you and make it all possible. Thank you so much. Bye, everybody.